to 7. Now I've already completed some of these answers in advance. Let's have a look at them. M to the power of 5 divided by M to the power of 3. We're dividing, so we subtract the powers. So 5 take away 3 is 2. Now on part B, I've looked at the numbers, so I've got 5 in my answer. Now I'm looking at the powers of x. So x to the power of 4 times x to the power of 2 is x to the power of 6, because when you multiply, you add the indices. Then I'm going to look at the powers of y. So I've got y to the power of 3 times y. Now, when there is no power, we can always put in a power of 1. It means the same thing. We are multiplying, so we add the powers. So we've got y to the power of 4. Question 2. Ask us to put them in order of size, starting with the smallest. Whenever you have a negative power, it means the reciprocal. So the reciprocal is the inverse. So I've written this answer as a decimal because I can see the next number is a decimal and I want to make sure they are the same format so I can compare them. Anything to the power of 0 is 1. Doesn't matter if it's a letter or a number. If it's to the power of 0, it is 1. And now I'm writing them in order of size, starting with the smallest. Notice I've taken care to make sure that the format that was given in the question is the same format I gave in the answer. Question number 3. Now, when you've got a fractional power, the denominator is the root. It's a 3, so it's the cube root. And the cube root of 125 is 5, because 5 times 5 times 5 equals 125. I've dealt with the denominator. Now I need to deal with the numerator. So it's 5 to the power of 2, which is 25. Sometimes people will want to write it as cube root of 125 in brackets squared to remind them what they're doing. Question number 4. So we've got a negative power, so I know I'm going to do the reciprocal. So the reciprocal of 10 is 1/10. And then we've got a fractional power. So we do the denominator first, which is the root. It is the cube root of 27. The cube root of 27 is 3. You must know all your cube roots up to an answer of 5. Then we're going to raise it to the power, so it becomes squared, and 3 squared is 9. Let's move on to the next page. Question number 5 is 5 to the power of 0. Remember, anything to the power of 0 is 1. Then I've got a fraction, so we deal with the denominator. The denominator is the root. So it is the cube root of 27, which is 3, because 3 times 3 times 3 is 27. Then we deal with the numerator, and 3 to the power of 1 is 3. Question 5c, I've got a negative power, so we're just going to ignore that for just now and work out 2 to the power of 3. 2 to the power of 3 is 8. Now we're going to deal with the negative power, which is the reciprocal, and the reciprocal of 8 is 1/8. 6 on 5b, so the answer was 3. Now we've got the negative power. The only change between a and b is this negative power, which remember is the reciprocal, and the reciprocal is the inverse, so the answer becomes 1/3. Question 7, we've got our fractional power. Remember, the denominator is the root, so we want the square root of 64. We can write it like that, but we don't put the 2 in. It's assumed it is square root. Square root of 64 is 8. Then we raise it to the power of the numerator, and 8 to the power of 1 is 8. 7b, now we've got a negative power, we've got a fractional power. We're going to leave the negative power to one side. We're going to deal with the fractional power, and we're going to deal with the roots. So it's the cube root into 25. That is the same as finding the cube root of the numerator and the cube root of the denominator. Cube root of 8 is 2, and the cube root of 125 is 5. Now we're going to raise it to the power of the numerator, and 2 squared is 4, 5 squared is 25. I square both the numerator and the denominator, and finally we're going to deal with that negative power, and that negative power means the reciprocal or the inverse. So the numerator and the denominator switch over. Last question, question 8. Anything to the power of 0 is 1, so 6 to the power of 0 is 1, and then we've got another fractional indices and a negative. So we're going to ignore the negative for just now. We're going to focus on the denominator, which is the root. So we want the cube root of 64, which is 4, because 4 times 4 times 4 is 64. Then we're going to raise it to the power of 2, which is 16. And finally, we're going to find the negative power. And the negative power is the reciprocal, so the answer is 1/16. It's 2-mark question, so you get 1 mark for dealing with the 2/3 power, and the final mark for getting the correct answer. Thank you.